Welcome to OState Daily. Casey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in. Fans, today we have a very, very, very special guest joining OState Daily. A guy that I've been trying to track down for a while because I love college baseball. And if you love college baseball, you know who Mike Rooney is. Mike Rooney, this is such a pleasure. I'm a little bit nervous. I am even more excited to get to talk to you. So welcome into OState Daily, my man.
You're nervous. Like, for all I know, Tom Holliday, the great TH, is going to listen to this, and then I'm going to get like a 17-point critique of my performance on this thing. So I'm the one that should be panicked, Casey, not you.
Absolutely. And just know that I sit with Dave Holliday. He's a scout in the Philly system. I sit with him at Oklahoma City and Tulsa games. So you're going to get critiqued by him too, Mike.
Oh, I love it. Yes. TH is my favorite college baseball analyst. I could listen to him do the Oklahoma State games on ESPN Plus all day long. I think of TH as the Charles Barkley of college baseball, where he can say anything he wants whenever he wants, and it's just fine because it's TH and we all love him, and it's going to be fine.
He is absolutely awesome. Legend, him and Gary Ward and his brother Dave Holliday, Jim Schwanke, and all sorts of guys built a huge program here at Oklahoma State. We'll get into that here in a minute. I want to back up to your background, though. You played at Notre Dame, and you played for Pat Murphy, who is coaching in the Major League still, managing in the Major League still. So you played for him at Notre Dame, and then you also got to coach for him at Arizona State. So talk about Pat Murphy, your relationship with him, and what he's meant to you.
Yeah, I mean, Murph has been, for my wife, Jenny, and I, Murph is, outside of immediate family, no one's done more for my wife and I than Murph. And I met him when I was 18 years old. I was a walk-on at Notre Dame. I grew up in suburban Philadelphia, Irish Catholic kid, and my dad had gone to Notre Dame. And when I got my acceptance letter to Notre Dame, it was the first time I ever saw my dad cry. It's like, and we give him a hard time. I say that Notre Dame's the best decision I never made. And, I have so many Murph stories. Like I go to Notre Dame and I try to walk onto the baseball team because I had a good senior year in high school. And I remember when we went there for orientation, my parents are dropping me off. My mom is not a sports person. My dad is a sports fanatic like I am. And me and my parents walk into Murph's office, let's call this August of 1988. And he says, well, what position do you play? And Murph's like 29 years old at the time, Casey. It's a long time ago. And I say second base, and he says, oh, that's great. We have 6 second basemen. And so we walk out of there, and my mom, me and my dad are kind of a little bit mortified, feeling like, man, that was a disaster. My mom turns and says, he was really nice. I think that went great. And we're like, Mom, come on. Like, that did not go great. So, it was like, for me, Casey, I checked my locker every day for 4 years. We had great teams, got to play. Craig Counsell was my teammate for 4 years in college.
Oh,
and
really?
So, yeah. And you talk about, like, sometimes in life, you just wake up and you're laying on a lottery ticket. That was for me. Like, to have a teammate like Counts for 4 years. Our senior year, we were 1 win from Omaha. Yeah. And then, to have a coach like Murph, it's changed my life forever.
Okay, I got to ask you. I coached a guy here at Guthrie, Oklahoma, who went to UCO, and UCO played Oklahoma State in a game. And in that game, he played all 9 positions in the same game.
Oh, wow.
Okay, yeah. Brandon Bagwell is his name. He was an awesome player. So I say that only to say, you played 6 different positions at Notre Dame for Murph, right?
Yes.
And then you got to coach with him, so you were really close with this guy. You didn't pitch, you didn't catch. I don't think you played first base.
Correct.
Could you not talk him into the last 3 so you could have the experience of playing all 9?
Casey, I'm telling you, man, like there was first of all, at that point in life, Murph was very intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
And I did not speak unless spoken to, but I was grateful for anything like pinch run, defensive replacement. Like, yes, it would have looked nicer on my resume, but I was in no position to be asking for anything. It was just hope you get an opportunity and then run through a wall when you get one.
I'm just thinking, like, let's scrimmage like somebody from D2. Let's get a lead on them, and let's play those last 3 positions, even if it's all in the same. And even when you went to coach with them, surely you gave them a little bit of heck when you were coaching with them about that, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny. Somebody brought this up. So I had a superstition when I coached for Murph. I was the third base coach, and we were playing Oregon State. And I didn't even, I'm an East Coast kid. I didn't even know Oregon State had a baseball program, but I knew that Arizona State was this legendary program. I'd been a high school coach the year before, and we go up to Oregon State and we lose the first game. And like in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting fired. Like my college baseball coaching career is going to last 6 months because Arizona State just lost to Oregon State. No, again, this is 1999. This is before they had won 3 national titles.
Sure.
And so the next day, it's very rainy up there. It's Pacific Northwest. The next day, I run out from the first base dugout to coach third base, and I just slid into the third base coach's box. And, it's like it was soaking wet. It was like a slip and slide. And we proceeded to beat them like 20-1 that day, Casey. And
awesome.
So after the game, Murph pulls me aside and he says, I don't know what that little stunt was that you did before the game, but just know you'll be doing that from now on until you hear differently. So that became a whole story. Another, like a phase 2 of my relationship with Murph is I coached third base for 6 years with grass stains on my pants. Never forgot the voicemail I got from the equipment manager saying, hey, Runes, just was wondering, like, I'm cool with getting stains out from the players' pants, but I'm just not trying to figure out why my third base coach has got grass stains on his pants. So anyway, I have so many Murph stories. I could keep you on here for 5 hours, but it was an incredible experience in a million different ways. Josh Holliday and I share that we were on a Pat Murphy staff, and you can imagine for all of us associated with Murph, seeing what the Brewers did this year, could not have been more proud. It was like watching a family member, have a season like that.
That is awesome. And also, one of the things that you're really well known for, I think one of the things that brings you the most amount of respect in the baseball community is your humble approach at which you do things by. I mean, you're just truly grateful for every opportunity you've given. And I think that's because of your background. You mentioned you grew up there in Pennsylvania, but then you started as a high school coach. You did the D1 assistant job, which we all know that is a 24-hour-a-day job. I mean, it's whatever they tell you to do, you're doing. You're the director of baseball operations, which is a 25-hour-a-day job, right?
Right?
And then you were a JUCO head coach, was a 26-hour-a-day job. So you really worked your way up one step at a time, so you understand the process of baseball.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I didn't aspire to coach at all those different levels, but it just happened that way, and it was a great blessing. It's really, to your point, it's given me great perspective. I mean, all of the stops were incredible, but I'm so grateful for my 7 years at Arizona State. But I got to tell you, the most fun I ever had in coaching was high school and JUCO. Yeah. So fun. I mean, now again, like to your point on JUCO, like we used to tell the players, like, hey, there's 2 things that you have to get right with before this experience starts. Number 1 is you're here and we're here, meaning the coaches, because we've been told we're not good enough, right? Like none of us came here aspirationally. We came here because we failed. So now what are we going to do about it? And number 2 is the beauty of JUCO baseball is the opportunity is infinite, but you are going to, this is like a baseball buffet. You're going to have to shop for the food. You're going to have to cook the food. You're going to have to clean up after yourself. No one is going to do one single thing for you, but it is a buffet. Like you can get whatever you want out of this thing.
Absolutely. And before we move on to your ESPN career and how you got hooked up with them, I got to ask you one question here. Over under on the amount of times that you have helped pull a tarp.
Well, at Notre Dame, Casey, so this is funny, like talk about 2 different paradigms. Like growing up in the Northeast and then playing college baseball in the Midwest, like you become a PhD in tarping fields. Absolutely. But then I remember going, we did have a tarp on our field at Arizona State. In my 7 years, we pulled it once. And I'll never forget, we had a local player from Arizona that saw the big, cylinder on the side of the field, and he literally asked, "What is that, coach? Why do we have that weird cylinder on the side of our field?" And you're just like, "Well, I don't know what to tell you. You're blessed to not know that." But yeah, when we were at Notre Dame, you can imagine, like it was, South Bend, Indiana has horrific weather. It's an amazing place, but the weather is not an area of strength. We were pulling that thing like it was our job.
Absolutely. So how'd you get hooked up with ESPN?
Yeah, Murph. I tried to quit coaching twice. The first time didn't take. When I tried to quit coaching the first time, I had, I was doing like real life stuff, but I started to broadcast, and here's what happened. Back then, 2005. Arizona State would get one game per year on TV. We would play Arizona on Fox Sports Arizona. And over the previous 2 years, I had started being the host of Murph's radio show. And, he knew I grew up in Philly and loved sports talk radio, all that type of stuff. So Murph calls Fox Sports Arizona in 2005 and says, hey, we're excited for the Arizona game to be televised again this year. Again, remember, this is 20 years ago.
Right.
One game per year was on TV unless you made the postseason. One regular season. Now it's crazy. Every regular season game. Yeah. Murph says to the Fox Sports Arizona people, hey, I have your analyst for the game this year. And they're kind of like, oh, coach, that's really lovely of you. But just to be clear, like, we're the television company and we pick the broadcasters. Coaches don't pick broadcasters. And as only Murph could do, he says to them, okay, great. So we're settled on Mike Rooney. Let me know what time you need him there, and I'll relay that to him. This is going to be great. He's going to be great. You guys can thank me later. And so they get the message very quickly that either I'm doing the game or they're going to have to deal with Coach Murphy. So sure enough, I get to do that game, and now I've got a videotape of me doing a game. And, over the next 3 years, I just kept grabbing every broadcasting chance I could, and I would send the tapes to ESPN. And then Meg Renchis, who's Meg Renchis at the time, she's had an incredible career at ESPN. She gave me the opportunity, Meg Aronowitz, to broadcast more, and the rest is history. It's crazy. But Murph was the origin.
So before we get into our college baseball talk, what other things beyond ESPN are you hooked up with right now? Yeah, so I
think if you're going to be a college baseball broadcaster, you have to have a real job, and I have a real job. I'm a sales trainer for a medical sales company. Nice. Of course, in fairness, I got the job through baseball. The dad of one of my former players at Malvern Prep was our VP of sales, but I've been there 12 years. It's been amazing, incredible. What a blessing. And then, as college baseball has exploded, so now I'm like a college baseball job collector. I've got the ESPN, but it's really just a bunch of hobbies. I've got ESPN, work with D1 baseball, writing and podcasting with those guys, which is so fun. Mike Farron and I get to do a show for Sirius XM during the college season, which is super fun. And then, you can imagine just whatever other things come up. Hey, if there's a chance for me to help college baseball grow and be known, and it doesn't, negatively affect my family, I'm doing it. I'm all in.
I've had a really hard time. We're going to get into our college baseball talk now. Of course, I went to Rosenblatt Stadium. I don't know how many different times. Oklahoma State went however many times in a row in the 80s. So it was like a home away from home. I'm having a really hard time just getting away from Rosenblatt Stadium and getting connected to the new stadium in Omaha there, that it's so fantastic. What advice do you have to give somebody old like me that was so attached to Rosenblatt?
Yeah, I think the great Joe Healy, our good friend at D1 Baseball, would say two things can be true at the same time. And I share the same challenge that you do, Casey, that I'll never forget John Manuel, who used to write for Baseball America for years and years. He said that college baseball had a Wrigley Field, a Fenway Park, and they tore it down. Yep. And that statement is, I believe it to be 100% true, and it haunts me. I miss Rosenblatt. Every year I go out to Omaha, I miss Rosenblatt. It was a magical place. It was a cathedral. However, I will say the new place has totally grown on me, and I love it. So I love both. It's Omaha. The thing about Rosenblatt that hasn't changed is the people, and they kind of make it great. Not kind of, they make it great. The city of Omaha still shuts down for 2 weeks every year, and it feels like the World Cup in soccer, and that's super special. Schwab, the Chuck Box, if you will, it's special in different ways. It's newer. It's amazing amenities for the players. It's a gorgeous ballpark, and you're right downtown. It's still so. I would encourage you to. Don't put away the sadness over Rosenblatt. Right. We're all sad about it, and we'll never get over that. But the new park, I'm assuming you haven't been there.
I have not, no.
Yeah, you're going to love it. It's still a great experience.
Let's get into our OSU talk here. Of course, Oklahoma State has one of the most legendary programs for people our age that can remember the 80s and then the early 90s, and then Tom Holliday had it rolling as well. But as far as the baseball goes now, Josh Holliday has had a tremendous amount of success at OSU. He's won a ton of games. He's won all these conference championships. He's hosted regionals. He's built OState Stadium. But Oklahoma State has lost 3 years in a row in home regionals in their brand new ballpark. So I know how Oklahoma State fans feel about that, but how is that viewed nationally from a national perspective?
Yeah, I think it depends on what lens you look at it through, Casey. Like I went through my first 6 years at Arizona State. We had an Omaha slump, and like in '98. They played for the national title and lost. And then in 2005, they went back. And I was there for those 6 years in the middle. And man, it haunts you, and we had great teams. Like our 2003 team won 54 games. We had 5 big leaguers on the field: Pedroia, Ethier, Jeff Larish, Travis Buck, Tuffy Ghosters. 5 of our 9 position players played in the big leagues. And you can't get to Omaha, and you start to think like, what do you got to do to get to this stinking place? And I think the first thing we got to talk about is, you can be one of the elite programs in college baseball and not go to Omaha every year. Like that can happen, right? Like if you look at it, whereas in the 80s, Oklahoma State made going to Omaha, I think they went 7 straight years. Yeah, they made it look easy, and things have changed. I saw this, like Arizona State, the program that I cut my teeth at, they've got 5 national titles, but the last one was 1981. You look up, Casey, in 1981, think about how many years ago 1981 is. That's almost 50 years ago now. Like, that hurts my heart to even say it, but that's so long ago. And so my point being this, like, if you look at modern college baseball, Oklahoma State has been to 11 straight regionals. Of 300 programs, there are only 3 with a longer active streak than that. Vandy, Florida, LSU. That's how good this program's been, how consistent it's been under Josh Holliday. And I think the other thing, but again, like, I don't want to minimize losing 3 straight regionals. We all know that no one's more tormented by that than Josh Holliday, but I know that frustrates the fans. I just think the postseason can really trick you. It's a small sample size. And if you look at those 3 regionals, the 2022 Stillwater Regional is one of the great all-time regionals in our sports history. Yep, no doubt. And like, Oklahoma State's a pitch away from going, if they win that, no offense to North Carolina, if they win that, you're going to Omaha. Like that was like a different animal. And then, in 2023, you've got Oral Roberts. I don't care what regional they were in. That's one of those teams of destiny where, that's just a bad draw. And then, last year, Florida shows up here with Jack Caglione, who's one of the best players in college baseball in the last 15 years. And so sometimes, what's the expression? Sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug. And my advice to Josh Holliday would be, you should absolutely keep doing what you're doing. Like, little tweaks here and there to elevate your program. Of course, you're doing those things. Like maybe trying to find some more NIL dollars so you can keep attracting guys like Nolan Schubert. Yes, 100%. But man, to host 3 straight regionals, that ain't easy. That's very few programs are doing that. Absolutely. So, kind of an interesting question here for guys our age who remember the 80s and remember all that success, all the Big 8 championships, the trips to Omaha. By the way, do you have any pull to where we can replay that game in 1990 and change the format where it's best 2 out of 3 instead of the single game? Do you have any pull where we could do that? Oh man, well, whenever we find a time machine, we can go back and figure out what we can do about that. Absolutely. So this isn't a yes or no question. So it's kind of an interesting question. I go back and forth. Is Oklahoma State a blue blood in baseball? Oh, 100%. I think blue blood is an interesting term. It's funny because I'm not being critical of the term. I use it all the time. I think I would use a different phrase though. I think the way I would say it is, I would say that Oklahoma State is a historic power in college baseball. That's what they are. And I think they're also one of the top programs in the country right now. Like, if you told me, start ranking programs, I would have Oklahoma State top 15, top 20. Josh Holliday in the current version of this program, they've made hosting a regional look easy when we know it's not. And again, this may hurt some feelings, especially when your home is not the ACC or the SEC. I mean, those two leagues are dominating the hosting. And so for Oklahoma State to be sitting here having hosted 3 straight regionals, yes, like that's incredible. It's so ironic though too, Casey, because Arkansas is in the SEC, they get a little bit of cover, I think, but it was just a couple years ago, Florida had lost 2 straight regionals, and people are starting to get anxious. And then next thing you know, they play for the national title. Next thing you know, they barely get in this year and they're a Final Four team. Yeah. Arkansas is the team right now that people are like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with us? And we keep losing. We lost a home super regional in 2021, and then we've lost 2 home regionals since then, and blah blah blah. The only good blip in the middle of that for Arkansas is when they got sent on the road to Stillwater. Yeah. And so you can get mental about that stuff. But yeah, I think I wouldn't use the term blue blood, because I think that term, the sport has outgrown that term. But I think Oklahoma State is a historic power in college baseball. Their history is unmatched. Pete Incaviglia is the Babe Ruth of college baseball. Yeah. Raman Ventura is the Joe DiMaggio of college baseball. The run in the 80s, the legendary coaches, etc. And and today, as we sit here getting ready for the 2025 season, Oklahoma State is one of the top 20 programs in the country. And when you're in that category, Omaha is always on the table.
It is, and we found out with Major League Baseball, people love watching offense. That's something that Gary Ward always had at OSU. So what is Gary Ward and what he did for college baseball, what has it meant for the sport?
Yeah, I mean, I just think when the 70s were when college baseball, for me, this is my opinion, I want to be clear here, I'm not credentialed historian here, but I'm giving you my opinion. The 70s is where college baseball started to percolate up, but the problem was it was the West Coast just obliterated everybody, right? The 80s is when college baseball started to spread its wing, and then the 80s into the 90s really becomes the golden era of college baseball. And Coach Ward, who is a legend to me, I remember watching him at a clinic, and I might have run through 4 pens at the clinic. Like every literal word he said, I was writing down, and him calling the batting cage the laboratory, and just the Jim Schwanke's book, The Blast System. I bought that as a high school coach. I was all in on all those things. Just incredible. And the way Coach Ward treated people, and so the long story short is those Oklahoma State teams became legendary, and where we are today in college baseball, we couldn't have got there without the dominance of the West Coast, the Coach Wards, the Skip Bertmans, the Ron Fraziers, the Wayne Grahams, the Mark Marquises, all those coaches, Augie Garrido. They built this beautiful sport just on sheer will. Nobody wanted college baseball to become huge. Those guys just demanded it. And so I'll never forget, I'll tell you this quick story on Coach Ward. When Rocky went to New Mexico State and then Coach Ward joined him in New Mexico State, he would come to Arizona every year to recruit JUCO players. He loved the JUCO guys. He coached at Yavapai, where I live in Prescott, Arizona. And Coach Ward would call me, and this is back in the days of landlines and work numbers, and he would leave me a voicemail. And every year we had a tradition. Me and him would go to lunch before he would go. And, of course, it was a little self-serving. He wanted to pick our brain on who are the JUCO guys that you're not going to take. And again, self-serving, that's too negative. I was overjoyed to receive that phone call. But my favorite part of it, Case, was Coach Ward would call. The voicemail always went like this. He'd say, Mike, this is Gary Ward calling from the land of enchantment. He would never say New Mexico State. He would always say the land of enchantment. And I could tell you, I I couldn't wait for that lunch every year. It's one of the highlights of my calendar.
Absolutely. So you've been across the country. You've seen all of the top facilities. How does OState compare to the best facilities in America?
Yeah, there's nothing like it. It's it's as good as it gets. It's, I think it's tricky when you're comparing facilities, Casey, because they're all different, right? Like,
yes, right.
It's not fair to compare OState to Dudy Noble in Starkville, right? Because they're doing something different. Like, the dude in Starkville that's 15,000 people. That's a different animal than what Oklahoma State needs. But I think it was Josh Holliday that said it is, Oklahoma State put $75 million into a stadium that's going to seat about 6,000 people. Right. So you can imagine what that means. Like, everything is over the top. And, from the training facilities to underneath the stadium to the really cool practice area down the left field line. I mean, it is gorgeous. It's one of the crown jewels of college baseball. It's unique in its own right? Like, it fits the needs of Oklahoma State. But, I would tell anyone who loves college baseball, a game at OState needs to be on your bucket list. It's that special.
Yeah, so facilities is that top on recruits list. I'm kind of getting into the transfer portal in the NIL talk as far as how that is going to affect Big 12 schools now that you have all this conference realignment. So is the facility as big of a deal as most people think, and how do you think the transfer portal and NIL will affect the Big 12 moving forward in baseball?
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, Casey, I hate to say this, but it's just not. 10 years ago, your facility was the whole deal. Now we're, like, I hate to say it this way, but like, think about if you had you and I had a real job. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you care about? Do you care about your cubicle, or do you care about the salary they're going to pay you?
Yeah, right.
That's kind of like, I don't want to say it in a way that demonizes the players, because again, like, if there's two companies that want to hire me to be a medical sales trainer, and one has a gorgeous office and the other has a less gorgeous office, I'm probably still going to take the place where I feel like I have the best opportunity to provide for my family. And I do. So I think, to your point, NIL has changed the game. I will say this, though. I don't think, like, it's just like the real world, right? If you look at studies, the number one reason people leave their current jobs is not for money. It's for they feel unfulfilled. They feel disconnected from their boss. And I feel like schools have done a really good job understanding this and not letting, like, I think about this last year during the season, Casey, there was all these conversations like, okay, like, where's Rock Chalowski from UCLA going to end up next year? Well, guess where he ended up? Back at UCLA. Those three freshman relievers at NC State, because Tommy White left. I wonder where what SEC schools those three kids are going to end up. Well, guess where they are? They're back at NC State. And I could go Brooks Bryan, the catcher at Troy. Everyone's saying, oh, LSU's going to need a catcher next year. I guess he'll end up there. He's back at Troy, right? I think schools have done an awesome job. I don't think, like, kids are not in the business of leaving Oklahoma State, but Nolan Schubert could have gone anywhere he wanted. He was a phone call away from his next stop. He's back at Oklahoma State. So I think schools are doing a really good job. What NIL is really becoming in college baseball is a way to retain student athletes. Right. And that's, like, I'm still trying to struggle to get my arms around it all, but if this is a way to retain your foundational players, then that's probably great. I think the portal is rapidly changing, but I think I think the transfers are still a thing. I don't want to portray the portal as dead. It's certainly alive and kicking, but it's not what it was. Right. Let me say it this way, Casey. Paul Skeens, Braden Montgomery, Tommy White, that caliber player is not in the portal anymore.
Right. I totally agree there. So the conference is losing OU and Texas, but you're picking up Arizona State, who are legendary programs in college baseball. Utah has had good moments. You've already picked up BYU that I'm telling you is going to continue. I think BYU and Cincinnati are going to just continue to get way better at baseball. Cincinnati, I think they're really going to take off. UCF, we already know, is growing and very good, and then Houston's going to continue to grow. So I think, although, let's just stay with this year. So the direct trade between OU and Texas for Arizona and Arizona State, I think the conference is stronger from a baseball only perspective than it was with before that trade.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point, Casey. I would say this, like many, I have despised conference realignment. Yeah, absolutely hated it. The fact that we're living in a world with no Pac-12 baseball conference is just gross, right? However, if you ask me to pick a bright spot for conference realignment, it's Big 12 baseball. Like, I couldn't be more, to your point, I could not be more excited about Big 12 baseball. It is going to be such a fun league. Now, I think we have to be realistic. The SEC they're in a class by themselves right now. And then the ACC has clearly established themselves as number 2. I think there's only one league in my mind that can catch the ACC and the ACC right now, and it's the Big 12.
Yeah. The
Big 10, maybe. But I think it's still... there's a lot to be determined there. I couldn't be more excited about Big 12 baseball. I do think that for the Big 12, Brett Yormark he's very impressive. But I also think he's very focused on football and basketball. Mm-hmm. Basketball maybe more than football. And I think we in the baseball community are going to have to continue to, what's the word? We're going to have to continue to impress him. We have to really... I don't know who it is. Maybe it's the coaches. Maybe it's people like me. I don't know who it is. But I think we really need to find time with Brett Yormark and tell him the story of what Big 12 baseball can become. And I think if we do a good job of that, he will invest in us. Mm-hmm. Right now, I think it's too new to judge that. But I'm super excited about Big 12 baseball. I think there's as much upside in this conference, like the SEC is what it is in baseball. The ACC is ascending. I think the Big 12, if you were looking for a growth stock, something that could really explode, that's Big 12 baseball for me. I think the schools you mentioned, Arizona State, Arizona, those are those are, to use that previous term, those are blue bloods in college baseball, and I'm really optimistic on the league. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I was really hoping we pulled in Oregon State because I'm a baseball fan, and they would have been a huge addition baseball-wise. That just goes to show you how far back in the pack baseball is in terms of the thought process for conference realignment. Let's get into this year's OSU team a little bit. A lot of returning starters. You got Nolan Schubert, Aiden Miola. You got Avi Ortiz, Colin Brigham, all 3 catchers. You got Ryan Ure, who hit 100-mile-an-hour last year from the left side. You got Gabe Davis, who can hit 100-mile-an-hour from the right side. So how is OSU being viewed nationally?
Yeah, I would say Schubert being back is the headliner, clearly. He's one of the top 10 players in college baseball. He's, when you start to think about the Golden Spikes for next year, whether you'd pick Nolan or not is a different question, but he'd have to be on your menu. And so I think the other thing is the coaching staff at Oklahoma State is so well regarded. When I think about Josh and Rob Walton, and on down the line. The thing about Oklahoma State, and this has been true every year, who you see in February and March is not who they're going to be in April, May, and June. No program does a better job taking their team from day one to where they end up at the end of the year. And so there's talent there. I think if we were going to really dig into it, it's okay, who's going to be the shortstop? That's a question. Yeah. Is that going to be Ortiz? It's hard to say. Forsythe was, kind of like that steady Eddie where it's just if there's a ground ball to short. I mean, the dude made 59 starts and made 4 errors playing shortstop. That's bonkers. And so, that's a big position. Can the catchers take a step forward? It's great that they're all back. Can Aiden Miola stay healthy when he's on the field? If they get 60 starts out of Aiden Miola, which he's just had the worst luck with injuries, I mean, that's a top of the league player. I mean, there's something special about that kid. Mm-hmm. I think it really boils down to the pitching. Now, if you said to me, you got one pitching coach in America to rebuild a staff, give me Rob Walton all day. Yeah. But Brian Holiday, that was a real find, and Sam Garcia. Oh man. Those 32 starts. Yeah, that's right. They were so I think I like the raw materials on the mound. I just, Gabe Davis to be he's the most famous guy that we keep talking about. If Gabe Davis is your Friday guy, that means that he's made serious jumps. He was not ready for that last year, but he's certainly he's as talented as any Friday night guy in America. So yeah, I'm very encouraged and also very curious to see how it plays out for Oklahoma State.
So how do you think OSU, you've seen a lot of these schools in the fall. How does OSU stack up against some of the better schools out there, talent-wise?
Yeah, I would be shocked if they're not a preseason top 20 team. I mean, I certainly haven't had those conversations yet. I think the more pertinent conversation, here's where the thing I've been thinking about, Casey, is, okay, who would I pick as the preseason favorite in the Big 12? I think I would pick Oklahoma State. You know, like, who were you going to say? Did you have a pick?
Maybe a UCF. They're pretty good.
Yeah, I'm just not ready. Like, second-year head coach and Rich Wallace, I don't know if I'm ready to put that on them yet. You know, Tech, you know, I would never write off Texas Tech, but they did finish 10th last year. You know, Arizona, I think TCU's interesting. I think they're going to bounce back like crazy. I think if you made me pick a favorite in the Big 12 today, I would pick Arizona or Oklahoma State or TCU. I probably would land on Arizona because they did win the Pac-12 last year and they have a lot of guys back. But, you know, I think I'm telling you probably everything you need to know when I say that of this big conference, it's a good-sized league. Oklahoma State's, if not the preseason favorite, they're right there.
Yeah. Yeah, let's not say they're the preseason favorite because we said that in football. That didn't work out.
Okay, we'll put that on Arizona then. Let them wear it.
Okay, there you go. Thank you very much for that, Mike Rooney.
Yes.
Hey, and thank you also very much for joining. I've taken a lot of your time. I know just how busy you are. So this has been such a wonderful honor. It has been so much fun to get to sit here and listen to you talk about college baseball. So, Mike Rooney, thank you so much for joining OState Daily. It has been a wonderful honor.
Thanks for having me, Casey. Appreciate it.